What's up, guys? This is Cory. Welcome to CNA Films and Animation. Well, today I'm going to be talking about a movie that I had never even heard of, but someone requested it, and so I thought I'd check it out. The film is The Theater Bazaar, came out in 2011, and it's basically an anthology film that contains 6 short stories all wrapped around one giant story. Short stories include Mother of Toads, I Love You, Wet Dreams, The Accident, Vision Stains, and Sweets. So, basically, first story is about a young couple. They're newlywed, I imagine, and the guy, he's very much into historical elements and stuff, and he gets invited by this old witch-looking woman to go to her house to look at this ancient book. So he sends his wife to a spa, and he goes to her house where he ends up getting kind of like a spell's put on him or something, and he has sex with the old gypsy woman, and the wife sees it, runs off, and a frog monster shows up and kills her, and the frog monster turns out to be the old creepy woman. That's pretty much the entire short story. This one was based on a short story, or a book or something, and it was forgettable. It really wasn't that good. It didn't blow me away or anything. The makeup was pretty good, but for the most part, it just didn't do anything for me. Then we have the second story, which was I Love You, and it follows a guy who, his wife is leaving him, and strange things are happening. He's not sure what's going on. There's blood on him. He cut his hand somehow, and he finds out that his wife's leaving him. And I'm not going to spoil what happens, but I will say that this short story was rather interesting. A little dark, but it was still interesting. I liked it, and I recommend it. I mean, it wasn't the worst short story on there, but wasn't the best either. Then we move on to Wet Dreams, which was directed and had a small role which was directed by Tom Savini, where he also had a small role in it. And it follows this guy who is having these nightmares about being castrated by his wife, and strange things happening. He goes to a psychologist who is played by Tom Savini, who tells him that these strange things are happening, so just close your eyes, count to 3, and you'll wake up. And pretty much it's a lot of dream within a dream scenarios, and creepy, weird shit going on that just happens throughout. And it's a very different story. I've never seen anything quite like it, and it was legitimately disgusting in places. Tom Savini, love the guy, especially his makeup and special effects skills. This was a fairly solid story. Not his best work, but definitely not his worst either. It was very interesting, and didn't really quite know where it was going to go, which is good. But for the most part, it was a little too confusing in places, so you have to really focus on exactly what's going on, and then the end happens, and it's like, okay. But yeah, it's not bad. Now we move on to The Accident, which was the 4th short story. This one follows a little girl and her mother. They are talking, basically. Little girl's asking her about death, or her little girl's asking her mother about death, and why do people die, and all this stuff. And it slowly reveals that little girl witnessed a motorcycle accident. Basically, a deer ran out, hit a couple of motorcyclists. One guy died. The other one was apparently the father of the kid who died. And the deer was still alive and moving and everything, but was obviously very injured and was not going to make it. And the little girl witnesses the older guy killing the deer, and all this stuff. So she's asking about death and everything, and that's basically the entire story. It's short, it's sweet, it's a little out of place, but you know, it's still an interesting story, I guess. You know, this one was probably the most believable of all the short stories, and it was just kind of tragic, a little sad even. But yeah, I mean, I did like this one, even though it did feel a little out of place in comparison to all of the other short films that were on here. But yeah, I do recommend this one. And now we move on to Vision Stains, which basically follows this woman who goes around killing people, these other women who are, you know, drug addicts, poor, women that she claims don't want to live anymore. And what she does is she extracts the fluids from the victim's eyes and puts them in her own, where she sees basically visions of the lives of the women who were killed. You know, like, this all takes place when your life's flashing before your eyes. She extracts the fluid, puts it in her eye, and then puts it in her eye, and you know, and she gets these visions of, you know, the victim's life. And it's honestly a very creative story, and I could see this being a full-length movie. I would say that it'd have to have a different ending or some changes throughout to make it fully work, but this was probably the most original idea that I saw in this movie, and it was very cringeworthy, especially when they show a lot of the needle going in the eye, and that made me cringe like hell. But yeah, it was very very well done, very effective, and rather creepy. So I highly recommend that one. Now we move on to Sweets, which basically follows this guy and this girl. They are part of this, I guess, cult where everybody's eating sweets, and this guy, he's getting, the girl's breaking up with him, and I mean, he's just a mess. You know, he eats till he vomits, and you know, they eat nothing but sweets, and it's just a very bizarre, very weird short story that was rather disgusting and off-putting. But the ending basically is they kill the guy, this cult group, whatever, and eat his organs, which is bizarre, weird, kind of creepy, but it was probably the weirdest of all of the stuff that I saw. But yeah, it was a little off-putting, a little disgusting, and didn't blow me away or anything, but if you're into that kind of stuff, I'm sure you'll like it. And the overall story that kind of wraps around and keeps reappearing throughout the entire movie is that this woman, she notices this theater that she's never been to before, I suppose. She goes in, and inside there's these like robotic people telling these stories, showing these short films, and slowly as the film progresses, it kind of does a reverse. The host of the show becomes less like a robot, more humanistic, and the girl who shows up inside becomes less human and becomes more robotic. And that's kind of the basic gist of that entire thing, which honestly, of all of the stuff, I'd say the intertwining story was the weakest, which generally with anthology films, they really are the weakest thing. You know, I don't know why, it just always seems like the intertwining story that, you know, you get introduced with and ends with is never quite as interesting as some of the stuff that you see throughout the film. But yeah, I overall have mixed feelings about the show, but you know, for the stuff that really worked, it really did work. The stuff that didn't, really didn't. Overall, I'd say that I'd have to give this movie a 6.5 out of 10. And, you know, the stuff that really worked was fantastic. The stuff that didn't really brought it down. But, you know, it's not a bad anthology film. You're going to come across some duds, and you're going to come across some great short stories. So I do recommend this if you're interested. Yeah, so tell me guys, have you seen the Theater Bazaar? If you have, what'd you think of it? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? What was your favorite short story? What's your favorite moment? Favorite characters? Or anything at all? Comment below, let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you guys like this video, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe. Be sure to check out other videos. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. If you have any movie suggestions or TV suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And as always, I am Cory, and I will see you guys in the next one.